Good morning, everyone. I have to apologize about the voice and the sans makeup. I have a roaring sinus infection going on today, so there's no makeup. That bugs me, and my voice is kind of coming and going and a little weird. But it's probably not going to be over before I need to post this, so we're just going to go with it, and hopefully it doesn't bother you guys too much. So one little addendum to last week. After I posted that, I had a friend who said, well, haven't kept the lids to my saran wrap. Hello. Okay, I don't feel good, so brain is mush. They hadn't kept the lids to their jars to store water in. And that's okay. If you still have rings, and even if you don't have rings, if you have rubber bands, you can just take some saran wrap over the top of that and put a rubber band on it, or screw a ring on it if you don't have the little sealable previously used lids. You don't want to use the new ones. Keep those clean and save those for your canning. But if you keep the old lids after you're done with a jar of whatever you can, then you can go ahead and fill that with water. But if you didn't, go ahead and just use the saran wrap method. The whole purpose is just keep the water clean. And even if your water gets dirty, hey, you're going to need water for other things other than eating. So you can use it for that if you have it stored. So just a thought. Okay. Let's go with today's list. There's going to be a couple more weeks of lists, and then we'll move on a little bit from there. As advertised, in the future, I will only do this a couple of times a month instead of every week. So the first and third Thursday, and then the second and fourth, we will concentrate on, family history and other things. So let's get going here. All right, this week is light, heat, and cooking. So batteries are on here again. I think that's really important. I think that's one thing that we all will not have enough of, especially if you, we're talking about light and the heat and the cooking, especially if your light, for the most part, is battery operated items, you're going to need a lot of batteries. So keep those on hand, have a way to store them. Of course, if they're in a cool, dark place, they store better than if they're getting zapped by super cold or super heat. Then matches, that's something we don't think of. So you're going to need matches for candles. You're going to need matches to light things. I suggest that you have many ways to cook. Down here we have wood fire pit or a fireplace. Keep in mind if you have like a gas fireplace, that may not be operable or able to use that, and obviously a little difficult to cook on that. So if you're going to cook some things, an outdoor fire pit, or the home I left had an indoor wood fireplace, that you could use. Your barbecue grills, your smokers, I don't know, there's sun ovens, there's all kinds of ways to cook, both hands-on and purchased things that you can do. You can use the sunshine. There's in-ground ovens, solar ovens that you can use. You can use actually a pit. Everybody's had a roasted pig. They cook it in a pit. There's many ways you can cook things if you have to cook. But if it's in the winter and outdoors, that's going to be a little trickier. But anyway, matches are key. You're going to need matches. If not matches, then at least flint and steel, and I'm sure we'll all get pretty good at that. I would suggest you have both, and an abundance of both. Propane. So this is if you need to, for instance, there are heaters now that are safe to use indoors that run off propane. Well, you're going to need a lot of propane to run those propane operated grills or cooking sources. Oh gosh, if you have a trailer, you need to make sure you have enough propane for that. If you have to bug out in your trailer, or if you need to house people in there, you need some propane to operate that. So that's another thing you're going to need to have on hand. Please be careful where you store these. Obviously away from children, away from heat sources. Try to store them where it's not a huge variable in temperatures if you can. And definitely, some of these things away from your food supply. Okay, so charcoal and pellets. That would be for your grills, your smokers. See what I've got here. Get that one. An outdoor cooking source. You need at least one of these, ladies. You just do. Going around and cutting down firewood, if we really are in a big emergency where everybody can't use their houses or most people can't, the trees are going to disappear fast, and it's going to be greenwood, and you'll have to hike quite a bit to get to any firewood source. So have things on hand that you can not only cook with but keep warm with. All of those will help with that, not just to eat, but also for warmth. Outdoor living space. Now, what I mean by this is some kind of protection or somewhere that you can go. Yes, there might be like Red Cross shelters or whatever, but if we're talking a worldwide issue and you somehow need people to live with you, or you need to live outside of your home, something like that, you're going to want a decent tent, a trailer if you can do that, at least a space somewhere in your backyard, a shelter, maybe even a shed that you could turn into a living space if you had to. So consider this. And I'm not talking about the doomsday pits that you dig that are 50 feet down. You don't need to go to that extreme. I don't believe so. That's great if you do. You do you. That's great. If you want to go that route, cool. But I don't think that's necessary, and I, once again, don't think you should go into debt for this. I think you need to do it responsibly, wisely, and carefully. Quickly, yes, but not faster than you can manage. Okay, indoor heating without electricity. So these are going to be like let me just tell you a quick story. So my parents were out without electricity for weeks one winter. I don't remember the cause of that. I think it was just a bad storm that downed a lot of power lines and infrastructure, and they had to work on it, and they literally had no power, which is weird because the neighbors next door had power. They had no power, and it was the middle of winter, very cold one, so they ran an extension cord to the neighbor's house to power just a few things, but they were cold and trying to stay warm and literally bundled up all day long and still freezing, and trying to keep their pipes from freezing. It was quite the ordeal. So, needless to say, that winter we all got kerosene heaters, great big kerosene heaters for our homes, which is great. However, with the kerosene heaters, you gotta be careful because you do have to vent them, which to me, I find that a little ironic that you're gonna have to keep the window open to vent it while you're trying to heat your house with it. But it's okay. It's better than nothing. However, I have discovered and have given my kids these, and will have some on hand for me as well. They're little indoor propane heaters. However, on one bottle of propane, it's only about 4 hours. So it would take the chill off, but it would be a great idea for a long period of time. So you're just going to have to do a lot of variables, think about a lot of things, maybe have your 1 or 2 rooms in your house that you actually live in to keep heated. Okay, let's see. Flashlights, 100-hour candles, lanterns. These are all light sources, can be heat sources. When we go camping, or when we did go camping in a tent, often we would turn on our little, can't think of it, lantern, the little propane lanterns that you light things with. Now, that's not good to keep on in your tent for a long period of time without ventilation, and even then, not too long. But it gave us light, and it also heated up the tent while we would climb into bed at night after dark and it was cold. And then we would just zip back up whatever we had vented it with and climb into bed and have that off. But you got to be careful with that. Anything you do, just be really careful about the carbon monoxide possibilities. Okay, bedding, blankets, and warm clothing. This will be our last little bit for today. So bedding, back in the day, my husband actually lived, believe it or not, in a place where they literally heated their home with just a wood stove. And so bedding was important, which is interesting because I don't like a lot of bedding, and he loves a lot of bedding on the bed. So that's interesting. But that's something that would help keep you warm and would be necessary, and you would maybe need extra beds. So you need to have adequate bedding for if you need to use it for warmth. Blankets obviously are part of that, but also can keep you warm elsewhere. Obviously, adequate cold weather gear for your entire family, and warm clothing. Now, that's not too hard with us as adults, but when you're talking kids, that can get a little tricky. One of the things that I did with my kids, and yes, sometimes they didn't grow at the rate you expect them to, but I would buy the sales clothes. So at the end of winter, I would be buying their winter clothes for the next year. And that's kind of how we shopped, was last year's clearance was next year's clothing. So it's one way to save money and to also have that 1 year supply on hand, because they obviously aren't wearing it yet. It's just a thought. Okay, so next week we're going to go to 72-hour kits and talk about those a little bit, and maybe some items you may want to consider having in those. Once again, very individualized, and also you need to consider how much you can carry, realistically carry, and maybe even carry for a distance. So you've got to be careful with what you choose to put in there. You guys have a great week, and I will see you next week for episode 8. And happy prepping.